Let's bring in Republican Congressman Andy Biggs, a member of the House Judiciary Committee. Great to see you today. Glad you're here for this breaking development. So how important is this interview and what we're learning? It seems to back up exactly what President Trump has been saying.
Yeah, no, I think it does back up and says what President Trump really wants to get to. He wants to get this thing over and done with. He feels exonerated. I think he also feels frustrated. There's been no indication of collusion, and the Mueller investigation is kind of wandering all over now, way beyond the scopes of whether there was collusion in the 2016 presidential election. So I think President Trump is exactly right, and I think Christopher Wray basically said, look, President Trump hasn't put any pressure on me, and I think that's right. What I was hearing beforehand was that was the case.
Christopher Wray has that job because of President Trump. And so for him to say that the president hasn't spoken with him or put pressure on regarding Russia, what does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that President Trump is giving him wide berth and the freedom and independence that he needs as the director of the FBI, with particularly the investigation that Mueller's conducting. The real issue is why isn't Rod Rosenstein, who is the #2 guy at DOJ, why isn't he putting some constraints on that? Why isn't he putting some constraints on that investigation? This thing is way beyond the boundary, and it's gotten way long.
Why isn't he? Do you know?
Well, the way I read it is that Rod Rosenstein helped bring Mr. Mueller on, and that his management style is to take a hands-off approach. Well, this is his buddy. He's got given him lots of room, and I think that's a real problem myself.
Hands-off, but hands-on taxpayer money and time to watch this.
Exactly right. And so it continues to go on and on and on. And quite frankly, a special counsel is going to go as long as you let them go, because they want to come back somewhere along the way and say, look, this is the work product we've done. So,
Congressman Biggs, though, isn't it a little tricky? Because if you step in on Robert Mueller at this point and you thwart this investigation, and I don't know if an attacking tweet does that, I want to get your opinion on that too. But if you do, that doesn't stop the investigation, or does it?
Well, a tweet doesn't do anything other than express what I think is frustration, and quite frankly.
But it has no chilling effect in your understanding.
It has no chilling effect.
And if you fired Robert Mueller, would the investigation go away?
Not necessarily, but so we've actually discussed legislation here in the House that I think is appropriate, and that is put some boundaries on this investigation, put a time there. Let's get a report done, and let's get it over with and move on, because in my opinion, President Trump has been exonerated from everybody by like Comey, like Clapper, the House Intelligence Committee. Okay, so there's no collusion there. There's no point for this investigation. So let's find a way to pull the plug, and maybe the Congress needs to do that.
That's fascinating, because there are two things going on, and I want to know from you, are there two factions on Capitol Hill, and are some of them Republicans? So what you're saying is put some boundaries on where Mueller's going, and particularly what he can spend and where he can go and all that. But then you have people who want to put some boundaries on whether or not the president can fire Robert Mueller and to save his job.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I mean, I actually heard somebody from the other party on the floor today say that we need to pass a bill that Robert Mueller can't be fired. And so it's really indicative of the division within the country in some respects. But it also gets to the heart of this, Harris, and that is, originally, people were calling for President Trump to be impeached before he ever even got sworn in. And that kind of, this whole delegitimization thing is what I think is driving what's going on now. And it's not producing anything positive in the investigation. It's not producing anything positive for the country either.
Last question for you, Representative. Robert Mueller enjoys bipartisan support for the most part. Do you support him? And, you know, considering some boundaries that you'd like to put on the investigation, do you support him staying and finishing the job?
No, I've been calling for his recusal since last June. The very fact that the team that he put together is so biased and has so many conflicts indicates to me that this investigation, indicated to me back then that this investigation would not be an objective investigation. I'd suggest that that's the case today. I don't think his product has been scintillating in any way, and I think that we'd all be better served if he was gone.
Would you?
I would not necessarily replace him. I think that his work is done. I think we need a second special counsel now to go back and investigate the corruption that we've discovered, that the Inspector General has discovered over time as well.
Congressman Andy Biggs of the great state of Arizona, wish we had your sunshine today, sir.
Oh, me